really, really excited to introduce you to our speaker today, a friend that I know both personally and professional, Jennifer Amos. You all know that I write this blog every Tuesday morning. This is what it looks like when you print it out. I had to look at it hard this morning because the time I spent with Jennifer getting ready for the conversation today, it was a really fast hour. And there were so many things we talked about over the body of work that she represents. It really was a very challenging exercise to articulate all of that hour into 400 words or less. So what I can say is, after growing up in a far-off land and landing here at the University of Minnesota with a terrific education, Jennifer got put into the fast track of corporate America starting here in Minneapolis. These brands that you're familiar with, General Mills, Pillsbury, and then others, C.H. Robinson. Eventually, at Rockwell International, she was in charge of everything that happens technologically across the globe for that organization. But as life works out, there are things that change the course of our trajectory, right? And so Jennifer moved back here to the Minneapolis-St. Paul, got really engaged with her family, and it opened up a whole new possibility for the technology genius of a person that really understands information technology on a global level. I could not be happier to introduce you to you, Jennifer Amos. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Paul, for the wonderful introduction. When I was dressed up this morning, I was just trying to think about, Paul was telling me all different color of a jacket he has. I said, well, what color can I, outstage Paul? Then I gave up. I looked through mine. I don't have a purple. I don't have a burnt orange. I don't have a green. So I gave up. But, everybody, most of you talk about American dreams. I am living in American dreams. From a simple growing up in Taiwan to come over here, and Paul asked me to talk about my journeys. So I was thinking about throughout my careers and my life stages, what are the factors, what are the elements that really propelled me? So I thought about probably 3 or 4 things. First of all is drive. Secondly, I'm pretty sure that's nothing different than most of you have experienced. Secondly, it's hard working. And the third, of course, is luck. Means you're in the right place at the right time. Drive to me, it means you have this unwavering belief in yourself, in what you're trying to achieve. And then you are so passionate about it, and you are willing to make sacrifice to achieve it. So that is drive. Let's take a look. We are in a golf course. Take a look at Tiger Woods. People know how many balls he hit every day, right? He hits every day, so to be good. Paul is an excellent golfer here, too. I'm pretty sure Paul spent a lot of time on the golf course as well. But anyway, so drive, you can learn from the environment that you, more a negative reinforcement. In my case, I grew up in a very poor family. So what I learned is what I do not want to be in, and I will never put my family in it. Just a couple stories. I remember when I was like 8 years old, my sister was 6 at the time. We were so poor that one day my mom dressed both us up and has this bundle want us to take to the pawn shop. So I asked my mom, what's in it? And then she said, it's my dad's winter wool coat. So I'm pretty sure in her mind was that if I have 2 cute little girls, bring this to the pawn shop, the shop owner probably would take pity on the girls. Therefore, you can get more money. That was first experience I can remember, and I told myself I would never ever want to be in that situation. On the positive side, I worked very hard in the school. Now, I said, I'm from poor family, and you all have a kids, and you all grew up. And you know sometimes there's a cliquing groups, right? The kids are halves and the half-nots. So the only way I can get people's respect or want to hang around with me is by being a very good student. So you are number one in the school. People want to hang around with you because you are smart. And then the teachers, they took notice of me. Then they would do things for me, such as, over the weekends, they would take me to the theaters, the restaurants, the things that my parents would not afford. So just a little bit injecting into the families. I clearly remember Chinese New Year's, my uncles. And he would give us, Chinese New Year's, meaning you always wear new things, right? New clothes, new dress, so you have a new start. My uncle would help us out, do all those things for us. And going to college, I clearly remember a friend of my dad. Every year before school starts, my dad and I would visit that particular friend because he paid college education. So we're talking about friends and the families that really help you, when you recognize people you can help, you can, to achieve things. To this day, I do the same thing for all my relatives and even friends. If you want to go to college and you don't have money, I'm willing to help. But I always have a conditions. You have to get a B. So, that's talking about friends and the families. And, a lot of stories like that. Throughout my careers, I've gone through a lot first. I was youngest project manager at General Mills. That's also locked in the facing yourself involves that when I was in grad school here, one of my class, the responsible IT director at General Mills came to one of our class to give a talk. And I discussed it with him on certain IT issues, organizational structures. And so he brought me into interview at General Mills. So I got into General Mills. Now, remember I'm from Taiwan, and that was 20-some years ago. And if you think I have an accent today, think about 20-some years back. And so, it was a very, very competitive environment because, we compete with certain promotions, the jobs. And us being from Taiwan and being reserved at the time, and with accent, and I can clearly remember there was a particular guy always made fun of my accent, so just in a way tried to put me down. But the director called me into his office one day, and he said, Jennifer, we are expecting more from an MBA than what you are showing today. So that was a wake-up call for me. And the thing, what I learned in order to deal with those situations are, first of all, really, don't take yourself too seriously, making fun of yourself with others. But most interesting skill I learned is that try to separate myself, Jennifer being as a person, or what Jennifer can do. So you kind of step out of your own body, so to speak. And by doing that, actually, I learned to be aggressive. I learned to go after the things I want to have. I learned to go head-to-head with people you don't think you can win against. So those kind of things, it's a kind of skill set you have learned. Of course, all those beginning points, you can do it. And that's got to be the faith you have in yourself. Again, throughout the careers, the funny things, for example, talking about being in women's conference. When I was interviewing jobs at C.H. Robinson, the company was is founded in 1905. So it's an online company. And all those executive suites, all men, all white men, all middle-aged white men. So at the very last interview, we were at a ballroom. So they have like 6 or 7 the executives that sit there. So they all collectively interviewed me. And one of the gentlemen asked me, say, Jennifer, you know you have worked with us every day. Do you know how to work with guys? And can you stand up, just go understand what we're saying and be able to compete or again argue or even collaborating with us? So I look at him, I said, Bernie, I never knew any other way. So again, the things what we have to believe, what we can do and what we believed in. So the families come into play, like what Paul said. One of the spring break, when I was in Milwaukee, working for Rockwell at the time, we were on a driving trip. My husband and my daughter were my daughter at that time was a second grade. We're talking about things. So I was asking her, I said, well, what are you talking about? And then she said, Mom, how would you know? You're never home. So, I was traveling big time and I would stay late every day when I went home. At the time, the only person ever greeted me was a dog, Spicer. Everybody, kids already in bed. My husband was mad at me. So, you finally have to ask yourself, is that what you want? You doing it for yourself or what you are doing? So that's when family really come into play. But I have to say, though, after being a small business on the other side of corporations, I really learned a lot about, the 2 different sides of the stories, how to, one thing I would say, though, for all of you working with a large corporation right now, the things you have to really think about it is the people across the table from you. Because, there are times people think about, you're the vendors. And so you don't really spend time with them, or you don't think they have something to offer. But most times, like when I go in to talk to people, even though I think I can rip you around my little finger, but you have to be very nice about it. So the point is you have to have a respect for people sit across the table, but more importantly for yourself. Paul is great at a networker. I'm a very lousy networker because I grew up in corporate world. What I'm always worried about is looking ahead, looking in the future, not so much looking around me, be a good networker. So it's a very, very important for those of you still in corporate world, is to learn the networking skills. That's great. So I want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing right now. I want to mention a couple of things. We're talking about being faith, being fairness. One of the things we're working on right now is so-called economic development. As you all know, there are over $20 billion of constructions in the state of Minnesota within the next 5 years. Viking just one small part of it. One of the big issues we as a state or in the construction businesses, its ability to get those capable minorities to perform the work. So that's one area of problems. The other side is all the majority firm, construction firms such as Mortensen's, Ryan's, McCarthy in the world, because of a state and a federal project, so there is a requirement goals to meet for minority contractors. And then if you look back, there are tremendous amount of grants, the government agency funds being tried to help the most underserved group, but somehow those triangles is not meeting it. Okay, we spend a lot of money trying to bring unserved group, but there's no track, there's no visibility, so there's no way to really show up how a particular grant, how a particular group of people is really being trained and move along the societies to be self-sufficient. So as an end result, every dollars the charity or the state government agency grants put it in, 65% of the dollar is going to the middleman. People organize educations, but they don't track it. If people really educate, is that people can really be employed for all those jobs going on. So what is the project, what we call it's really Minnesota Legacy. We really try to define the systems that you can follow end to end a candidate from the minute into this system to how well it can be trained and what's the payback. So hopefully for every dollars the grants we spend will be tracked and see a lot more results. The second thing I want to kind of mention a little bit is the idea of a crowdsource funding. Okay, now I'm going to rush here now. You all heard about crowdsource funding, right? In April this year, Obama approved a Jobs Act. The reason being is to increase the jobs. And by end of this month, September, the SEC is going to come out with the rules. It's basically saying that the companies like General Mills, if they all Cargill is private, the General Mills, if they want to raise the money, they can start to soliciting the funds in the billboard. Today, if you want to invest monies, it have to go through broker-dealers, licensed broker-dealers. A lot of you are familiar with that. But think about yourself from investor perspective. Think about 20 years ago. Would you like to have like $1,000 put in the Microsoft stock if you have opportunity to do so? But most of us do not have the opportunity. So that's the idea of a crowdsource funding from an investor side, allow you access to the potentials. And then from the business side, it's give you a platform to raise money to do the things. Therefore, you can employ more people, and that's where Jobs Acts come to play. Right now, that unfortunately, like anything else, there's a lot of things inside the law structure. So by end of this month, like I said, we will have a Title II, meaning accredited investors can invest. You will have access to all those investment opportunities. And then by next year, so all the crowd, meaning you can actually literally invest in the companies you have access to $100 at a time, but with a limitation of $1 million for a year for any investors. So that's something, and other things what I'm doing right now. And just the idea of the open transparencies, investment opportunities for everybody, that's really kind of interesting to me. And for the future, a couple things I'm really want to talk about. I know my husband is in here someplace, I can't see him, but believe it or not, I really would like to spend more time with him. Even though but the couple things also, education is very, very important. So I'm looking into charter schools, potentially doing a charter school or even charter boarding school on one hand. On the other hand, is looking at Hops Farm microbrewery. And as you can see, the future is wide open. That's why the future is so exciting to me. And on one thing, it's good, always looking at futures, and very, very seldom I have a time to kind of reflect myself and look at, what I have done or what is around me. But if you think about it, if the future is the same as today, that would be kind of boring, isn't it? But with that, I'm going to turn back over to Paul.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you so much. I was struck by many things that she said, but mostly by the idea that somebody else helped get this brilliant woman through college. The discussion question is, who are you helping today? At our table, we were reminded that our presenting sponsor grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and he has a house across the street from Lambeau Field. So he's helping people all the time discover the love of the Packers. It didn't work here. So now's my favorite part of the breakfast, where I get a chance to take what I overheard in some of your conversations and ask some questions for Jennifer. So first of all, thank you very much for being here. It's a real pleasure. You married this skinny kid from Wisconsin who obviously was a real joy in your life at a point in time when you were really striving hard. What have you learned from Kevin?
Well, I learned how to snowmobile. The thing is, as I, you probably can imagine the environment I grew up was. So it's always study, and even got here, and what I always looking for is the future. It's what I have to do these things, what I have to do. So meeting Kevin's really, you stop, you smell roses, and I learned how to snowmobiling. And he is from big snowmobiling families. So one time, you guys will be funny. Each one of us took the snowmobile out, and you see all the pictures, right? You can hang around the side of hills, go up this. I said, well, that'd be very cool. So they all go around these hills, go like around this. I said, ooh, I'm tipping over. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going this hill. So I closed my eyes, give a gas, and then snowmobile went that way. I went that way.
Yeah, note to self, don't close eyes and give gas. So very pointed story about the conversation with your daughter. So you moved back to Minneapolis, St. Paul, started this private business. How did you get involved then suddenly by turning that switch off in your kids' lives? I was lucky from the perspective of, being, as you all know about C.H. Robinson's histories. So at a point, so now you can do the things you wanted to do. Starting or working for small businesses, not so much, it's lesser work, actually a lot more work. And not more, you think about it consistently all the time. But it's the idea, the flexibility, the integrations of the work and the life do become the one. For example, you all know, Paul knows my daughter Katie ice skating a lot. So I was able to take her to the skating rink and watch her. So you have a lot more free times and flexibilities. And I feel that you'll be able to talk to the kids better. And also at the same token, kids gets to know you a little bit better, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how's your faith alive in your work these days?
It's actually it shows up in very different ways. I mean, even personally, just allow me a couple seconds.
Yeah.
I was in a very, very bad car accident, and I was people around me, even the doctors, the paramedic, didn't think I was going to live, but I survived. And not only I survived, I had 2 kids after that. So what can you say? Somebody must be looking after me. So that's one thing. And so what I like to translate that into the work is being fair. And the projects, what I'm doing right now, talking about economic development or economic project, Minnesota Legacy projects. So we actually talk to all the state, the DOTs, Department of Labor, cities, and so it's really trying to give it back, so to speak, and to give people have-nots and opportunities to leverage the resources already there to do a better utilize, so you can, therefore leverage for the next generations. And that's really, in my mind, it's kind of faith.
What do you do for fitness? How do you find the time with the way you go about life for the fitness?
I guess in the summertime, we walk golf course. So that's a really 9 holes, maybe 2 times minimum a week, and hopefully it'll be 3 times most of the time. But anyway, so walking is a lot. And I believe fitness is something, it's really, you make sure if you can physically active, you don't take easy way out. For example, at work, and I try to go downstairs, walking on the stairs versus taking elevator, but I come up through elevator, but walk. So you try to inject all those into you. And another thing is really the dietary. And in my mind, it's not so much a diet or anything, it's a proper amount. Everything you do, you eat, think about what's proper. So.
Final question. I'm curious about the charter school idea. What do you, people start charter schools because they have this idea that it can be done either different or better. What are your ideas about different or better for charter schools?
Again, that's how it goes through the economic development for underserved populations. I don't know if you can really change the catch-22 downward spiral unless you pull the kids out of the environment. And I understand there's a lot of social issues, the parental rights versus kids' rights. So I'm trying to think about when I'm doing, I want to have those boarding schools or have a parents' approval to really take them out so they can really change. I saw a PBS in the very early days, I think in my early 30s, there was interview a 60-year-old black kid, I should say African-American kid, that it was shooting. And the interviewer asked him, he said he never knew any difference. He didn't know that was wrong because he grew up with. And that particular episode just so stuck in my mind that I always thinking about it. You heard all the things in Northeast Minneapolis. You hear about all the monies put in all those social organizations in that neighborhood, but you don't really see a lot of improvements. So what do you have to do? And then that's in my mind. Maybe if I can do it, will be through if I change 20 kids' life. Maybe the 20 kids can change, another 50s. I don't know. So that's the thing that kind of the thinking through my mind.
We're glad you're going to try, without a doubt. Thank you so much. So don't go anywhere. Now you get...